In this video, we are going to do the walkthrough of Azure Monitor service. All right, I am on the Azure portal. Let's go to the Azure Monitor. This is where you can find the Azure Monitor. Some of the things we have seen it in earlier videos, but let's do the walkthrough once again. Yeah, so on the left hand side, you can see various options, right? Such as overview blade, right? It shows you the various insight and then some of the things that you can, go ahead and click and basically utilize straight away. But let's understand in detail some of the things there that you need to aware of, right? Like activity log, you know that what it is basically the kind of the change in Azure resource definition to some extent, right? And this log, not all the things is basically coming by default in the Azure Monitor. You have to funnel it. And how do you do that configuration? Through the export activity log. You have to choose like a log analytic workspace as well, right? And what type of log that can be funneled at the subscription level, you can see that, right? Let's go ahead. These are the different types of log that you can basically get into the Azure Monitor and then write the query on top of it. That one thing, right? Which is not coming by default. Azure Monitor gets the metrics data, not basically the resource log or activity log. You have to get that into the Azure Monitor, right? And there is a mechanism to do that. So you need to understand that as such, to get into the Azure Monitor. Second thing, this is where you can write the alert. We have seen the action group, right? But this is where you can come and create the alert, alert rule. Let's go ahead and see what we see there. Right now, we don't have many resources. That's why we're not in a position to go ahead and select the scope. But once you have that, what will happen? You can basically select the scope, then you specify the condition, then you choose the action. An actual action is there within the action group. We have seen that, right? When we created the action group, we created with notifications, not actual actions, right? But we can do that within the action group itself, right? Then some details that you can specify, but that's how you can go ahead and create the alert rule. You can select the action group that we created and get notified, right? Mostly the metric data, not all the logs are there by default. And Azure Monitor stores the default log that comes in for 90 days. You don't need to pay for it, right? But if you want to retain more than 90 days, then you have to basically design your monitoring solution using the log analytics, right? And that's very essential to do in real life scenarios. In this course, we're not covering those details because those details comes as a part of the administrator course actually, and we have to get to a lot more detail to understand that design pattern and basically integrate with the Azure Monitor. We're not going that here actually. Here is just understanding, to create the alert rules and basically make use of the action group to get notified. That's the only thing we're targeting, right? Metrics, logs, as I said, like this is something we have to design and get it here, those logs, and so that you can write a custom query and get notified. Change analysis, again, there is a specific solution that we need to go ahead and onboard to do the like a change analysis, and this solution sits on top of the log analytic workspace. Service health, we have seen. Workbooks, again, most of the workbooks also need log analytics underneath it, but you can make use of the workbook basically to see the performance. You don't need to create your own dashboard, particularly around virtual machines, right? Performance counter, availability, those kind of things coming out of the box as part of the workbook. Then insights, we mostly touch upon the application insight, but as I said during the discussion, in order to get the details around application performance, log, that telemetry has to be funneled into the application insight, and it can be done through the agent or it can be done through some SDK, right? And once that is done, then you can work through the Azure Monitor and get notified, right? Likewise, there are a lot of things here that you can scan through and make sure that you are understanding what kind of insight is provided by different service. Actually, we're not going to go ahead in details, but just at high level, right? Another thing that you might see here is a managed service, right? You might be knowing that Prometheus, Grafana, right, SCOM, these are the widely used product in industry to do the monitoring, right? And when you go ahead and select this particular option, understand the fact that there are additional charges to utilize these services, right? But yes, Azure provide the managed service, particularly for Prometheus, Grafana, and SCOM, that you can spin up and utilize for your monitoring purpose. Now, this service comes out of the box in the cloud, and a lot of time I noticed that people make use of this particular managed service, particularly for the application monitoring, because the thing is that when you use Azure Monitor for the monitoring, what is very essential to understand that there is a good amount of engineering effort is needed, to orchestrate your monitoring strategy. And that's sometimes not suitable, particularly for small organizations. For big organization, it could be okay because they got a staff, to sufficiently address the need from the engineering side. But in small organization, it may not happen. So sometimes like such services might play a good role, because you don't invest a lot of time, doing the engineering, the solution from the monitoring perspective. That's the key there, right? Another thing is that, as I said to you, not all the log comes just like that. You have to funnel some of the logs into the Azure Monitor so that you can basically write some queries on top of it, right? So that's the DIAC setting, and DIAC setting has to be done for almost all the resources, and not all the resources support diagnostic setting as well. So you have to understand that, right? Collection rule and collection endpoints. These are the ways to extract some of the custom log and the performance counter out of the box. So these are the also things very essential for you to understand when you work with the monitoring strategy. Because see, at the end of the day, when you utilize Azure Monitor for the monitoring, it's not something like that you just spin up the resources and you get everything what you want for monitoring. No, there is a lot more I think design consideration that you need to be in that particular case as well. And again, it's not something you have to do as part of the Azure fundamental. These are the things that comes with Azure architect or Azure administrator, and they are the one who would be orchestrating those things actually. But that's just a kind of like overview to you, nothing more than that. But one more thing I forgot to mention, there is something like that private link scopes, right? Now, by default, Azure Monitor is a kind of public service, right? So you can basically send the telemetry from any public endpoints, right? In a secure environment, you have to ensure that your private network is only basically can talk to Azure Monitor, right, within your environment, and you want to basically restrict the public endpoint, the telemetry coming into the Azure Log Analytics. So this concept is called AMPLS, Azure Monitor Private Link Scope, and that also something has to be designed. Right, and it's not again as part of the Azure fundamental. It's something comes in Azure administration as well as like architectural side, right? How to design to ensure that rest of the endpoints that are basically within the environment can only send the telemetry to the Azure Monitor, so that your scope is narrowed down to the private environment only, right? And in secure environment you have to do that, right? That is something also part of enhancing your security postures, and that's the key there to understand, right? So many things there to digest, but for you just at high level, what kind of capability are there, what you can do, how to get a log, what is the default the things for Azure Monitor that comes out of the box which you can utilize, and where some kind of customization needed, right? That's very essential when you work with Azure Monitor. That's all pretty much.